Welcome to the SVRI and the Regional Center for Multidisciplinary Research, Autonomous University of Mexico, and the National Women's Institute Mexico's webinar to launch the SVRI Forum 2022, the much anticipated 7th International SVRI Forum to be held from the 19th to the 23rd of September 2022 in Cancun, Mexico. I am Diana Arango, Global Lead on Gender-Based Violence at the World Bank Group. I am delighted to be your host for today's webinar. Before we get started, let me start with a little housekeeping. The event platform we're using today is Zoom webinar, and we are being recorded. Our online participants are muted for the duration of the event. For those of you online with us today, while we are getting started, please introduce yourselves in the chat and tell us where you are in the world. The webinar recording will be shared with you all via email and will be uploaded to the SVRI website. The webinar today will be in English, but translation is available via the Wordly app. So if you want to use translation, please click on the Wordly link provided in the chat. Open the page and select the language of your choice. As we move through today's agenda, please write any questions in the chat and we will endeavor to answer them all. We have a packed agenda for you today, filled with extraordinary forum partners. As I introduce each speaker, their bios will be pasted in the chat so you can be aware of the immense contributions each panelist has made and are making to our field. So let's begin. We are honored to have the Honorable President of the National Women's Institute of Mexico to welcome you all to this event and share thoughts on the forum.
Desde México saludo con mucho gusto a todas y todos los participantes que nos acompañan hoy en este lanzamiento del foro de la iniciativa sobre investigaciones de violencia sexual 2022, el cual tendrá lugar a cabo en nuestro país en septiembre de este año. El foro SVRI es la conferencia mundial más grande sobre investigación relacionada con la violencia contra las mujeres y las niñas. En cada una de sus ediciones, el foro ha reunido a investigadoras, donantes, profesionistas, legisladoras y legisladores, activistas y sobrevivientes para conectarse, aprender y compartir. Para el Instituto Nacional de las Mujeres de México es un honor acompañar la organización de este evento que representa el mayor foro a nivel mundial en materia de investigación e incidencia política sobre violencia contra las mujeres, las niñas, niños y adolescentes. Durante sus 6 ediciones anteriores y desde 2009, el foro ha logrado ser un espacio de encuentro e intercambio de conocimientos que desde diferentes perspectivas nos permite comprender mejor las causas y efectos de las violencias que enfrentan tanto las mujeres como las niñas, niños y adolescentes. Esta comprensión nos acerca al diseño de las mejores medidas para prevenirla, atenderla y erradicarla. La atención a una problemática de esta dimensión exige la colaboración de diversos sectores. Requiere que las y los investigadores expongan sus hallazgos a las y los legisladores y demás autoridades involucradas en la ejecución de políticas públicas, tanto de prevención como de atención de las violencias. Que los profesionales intercambien experiencias con las y los financiadores, que las autoridades que tenemos como función diseñar políticas públicas nacionales y tomar decisiones, escuchemos las perspectivas especializadas de las activistas y que conversemos con las sobrevivientes. Este foro nos recuerda que el conocimiento se construye de manera colectiva. Si bien el tema de la violencia es recurrente a nivel mundial, todos los días nos enfrentamos a nuevas formas, tipos y factores de riesgo que lo ocasionan. Recientemente, la pandemia generada por el COVID-19 ha profundizado las violencias contra las mujeres y las niñas. Hoy sabemos que las mujeres, las niñas, los niños y adolescentes han sido las principales víctimas del confinamiento. Es necesario comprender mejor su impacto y sus efectos en el futuro. En el caso de América Latina y específico de México, la violencia contra las mujeres, las niñas, niños y adolescentes es un problema social de magnitudes alarmantes que requiere de cambios en la sociedad, en las familias y en las instituciones. Esto exige soluciones innovadoras y creativas que sean interseccionales e integrales. Estoy segura de que espacios como el foro son el mejor laboratorio para su creación. Por eso, a lo largo de los 5 días en los que se desarrolla el foro, se discutirán los estudios, investigaciones y hallazgos más recientes y que nos brindan herramientas para avanzar en la prevención de la violencia. La diversidad de participantes permite tener un acercamiento regional a las principales problemáticas que se identifican y lograr idear una respuesta adecuada. Permite también escuchar las voces y tomar en cuenta las vivencias de las mujeres, las niñas, niños y adolescentes desde sus distintas realidades. En este espacio quiero refrendar el compromiso del Gobierno de México con el Foro 2022 y reitero la invitación a todas y todos ustedes para participar desde sus campos. Recordemos que ningún sector puede poner fin a la violencia por sí solo. La suma de los esfuerzos, basados siempre en conocimientos, datos y experiencia, es la mejor manera de hacerle frente. Contamos con ustedes y será un gusto verlos en México. Muchas gracias.
Well, thank you, Honorable President Gassman, for that introduction and that welcome to the SVRI Forum 2022. It's so great to see all of you introducing yourselves in the chat, both new friends and old friends. Thank you for joining us today. I am now delighted to introduce Dr. Claudia Garcia Moreno, Unit Head in the Department of Sexual and Reproductive Health and Research at the World Health Organization. A leader in our field, Claudia is one of the founders of the SVRI and the SVRI Forum Chair. Over to you, Claudia, to set the scene for our discussion by presenting on the forum and what we look forward to in 2022.
Thank you, Diana, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining us. Liesl, I presume you will show slides. Thank you. I'm going to start just maybe very briefly to say a little bit about the SVRI. You know, we founded the SVRI with funding from the Global Forum for Health Research in 2003. At the time, it was felt that sexual violence was, you know, within the context of the violence against women work that we were doing, still one of the most taboo and the most unrecognized forms of violence that needed to be highlighted to researchers and funders and really be put on the public health and social development agenda as an important issue. So we started out with that narrow focus, wanting to complement other initiatives, other broader initiatives on violence against women. We were initially hosted by WHO in my department, at the time, the Gender and Women's Health Department. And in 2006, through a competitive bidding, we moved the secretariat to the South African Medical Research Council. And we have been there until 2019, when we very proudly have become now an independent civil society organization based in South Africa and under the leadership of Liz Dartnell. We've really, it's been really exciting to see the organization grow and get to where we are now. We started hosting the forums, and I'll say a little bit more about that as a way of building the field. Our 4 objectives, you can see in this slide, focus on first building the evidence. And as you are well aware now, the focus is still, we try to bring sexual violence to the fore, but the scope has expanded to really focus on violence against women, violence against children, any forms of violence that are based on gender inequality. And as Nadine just mentioned in the video, there are ever growing new forms of violence, sadly. So we need to be on top of the new forms of violence, new challenges. And that's what we try to do through building the evidence, increasing innovations, and also the second objective is to strengthen the capacity, particularly with a focus in low and middle income countries, and through various initiatives that we have to lead rigorous, impactful, and innovative research. Thirdly, promoting partnerships, a cooperative and nurturing field where knowledge is shared and people collaborate and support each other. And again, as was mentioned in the video, we really are very cognizant of the fact that this is a complex issue, that it needs multi-sectorial, multidisciplinary, interconnecting work. And also that the research really has to be as much as possible built on partnerships, not be just isolated, researcher-driven research that sits on a shelf or gets published in a journal, but that really it creates partnerships between researchers and programmers, between researchers, programmers, and policymakers, so that the research really has an impact on violence and contributes to ending violence against women and against children, which is ultimately what we all want. And lastly, to influence change, we want to see more resources going to the field. We want to see resources better used. We want to see donors educated on the issues and also contributing to build the field. As I mentioned earlier, the next slide, please. We started the forum in 2009. And this is now going to be our 7th forum. We usually have them every 2 years, but unfortunately, the pandemic got in the way so the one in 2021, we moved to this year, and we hope very much that we will be able to have a totally in-person event, COVID-19 permitting, yeah. So the SVRI really started out as a platform in a way of bringing people in the field together, of building and contributing to establishing some of these partnerships that I mentioned earlier. And it was from the beginning, it's been a very safe and nurturing space, welcoming young researchers. And although, as you can see in the graph on the right, it has been growing strongly in terms of the numbers of participants, the number of abstracts that we receive and review, and the number of presentations. And I would add also, I think it has been amazing to see the change also in the quality of the abstracts and the presentations. And but we strive to still keep it as a nurturing environment where people feel safe to share their challenges and their achievements as well. It usually runs over 5 days. We have 1 day of pre-conference workshops that are set in advance and that people can register for, because usually there's a limit in terms of the numbers of people we can accommodate. We have an ever-growing number of pre-conference workshops. I think you can already find them on the web, on the SVRI Forum web. And I know that we still have requests coming in for additional pre-conference work, and we'll do our best to accommodate as much as we can. Then we have the 3 days of the conference itself. And this is an abstract-driven conference. So each abstract is reviewed by at least 2 people. We create the panels based on the number and the type of abstracts that we receive around different themes, which I'll mention in a minute. And then the last day, we leave open for a participant-driven events. So, you brought together all your, researchers from 5 countries. You can have your own meeting, or you can have an open meeting where you share with. So it's really, these are all participant-driven events. We just facilitate, the availability of the rooms, etc. We have an exhibition area where people again can apply and register for stands of different sizes to showcase the work or to hold events. We try to create a lot of networking opportunities through the breaks, through the way we organize the parallel sessions, so that there is a lot of time for interaction. And lastly, as we know, this is a field where we are likely to have been exposed to things, that we may be triggered by things. So we try to always have a space for well-being activities, and also to offer some counseling support for those who may need it. Next, please. As it was mentioned in the video, this really has become the largest, or the go-to meeting in this area, particularly that focuses on low and middle income countries. We are guided by our principles of learning and collaboration across sectors. As mentioned, we want to bring researchers, policymakers, funders, and practitioners to come together and to learn from each other, and also jointly design solutions, build knowledge, create collaboration, expand networks, and share learnings. And we're also guided by our focus on diversity, equality, and inclusion. And I would say that way before decolonizing research became a buzzword, I think we have striven always to ensure that the researchers from the South are well represented in presentations, making presentations, and bringing their experiences to the fore. We acknowledge the power dynamics that are inherent in research, and we also have a strong focus on nurturing the new generation of researchers through bursaries for young researchers from LMICs and mentoring. And there is usually a Forum Prize for the best young researcher presentation. And we'll be hearing from Jocelyn, who was one of our young researcher awardees some time ago. Next, please. These are just some of the nice things that delegates say, and I'm not going to read them, but just really emphasizing how people were kind, the sessions were good, the quality of the research was good, and how it has led to ongoing collaborations and research research collaborations. I love the forum. It's my favorite conference of all time. And just talking about the range of the diversity and the focus on survivors. Next slide, please. Why Mexico? So I hope you all know by now that it will be held in Cancun, in Mexico, from the 23rd. And we have held the forum on alternative years in South Africa and another region, another country region, with the aim of increasing the membership from that particular region, and also engaging more with researchers from the region. So we really we looked closely this time at both Latin America and the Caribbean, and also the East Asia Pacific, which were 2 regions that we identified we had less members joining from. And in Latin America, there has always been the issue of the language divide, which is unfortunate because there is a lot of really good research happening here that doesn't always get into the international community, and vice versa. So we thought it was timely to do it here. There's a lot of strong feminist organizing around violence against women, and a lot of, social movement, social justice demands that made it a good choice for this time. And, next time it's probably going to be Asia after South Africa. And so we want to use it really as an opportunity to also bring attention to some of the work that is being done in the region, and to strengthen those partnerships and increase our membership from the region. And we are known as a very welcoming, and I don't know, the word in English escaped me at the moment, very hospitable. And of course I'm biased. Next, please. And we've been very lucky. The regional research center in the National University is a very well known, well established in this, and they host a regional Latin American kind of meeting on violence against women every 2 years or something. So we're building synergies there. These are some of the themes that we have identified, and Liz has kindly put it into the link to the chat. The themes were identified through also through the membership. So all of you may have contributed to identifying these. We use them really as a guide. As I say, it is abstract driven. So if we have a lot of abstracts on something, I don't know, mental health that isn't particularly identified as a theme, we will create a panel on that. Strong focus broadly on what works and what doesn't to prevent and respond to violence. The issue of scaling up, how do we take the good, effective strategies or interventions to scale? The whole issue of humanitarian crisis and emergencies, what works in those contexts, how do we promote resilience, well-being, self-collective care, understanding the impact of COVID-19, of course, will be an important theme this year, and then decolonizing and democratizing research. So we encourage people to submit abstracts around the themes, but if there is some really innovative idea or anything else that people want to submit abstracts, it's not limited by the themes. They're more of a guide than anything else. Through our hosts here, we identified a company that is organizing all of the logistical and part of it of the forum. We have identified a hotel, Paradisus in Cancun, that provides a very all-inclusive package, and that has the sufficient room size and for the events that we need to have. So we hope that it will be quite attractive kind of deal in the sense for participants as well. Next, please. A reminder that the abstract closing date is coming soon. It is at the end of this month. So please submit abstracts, share the information with your colleagues, friends, anyone that you think would be interested, and encourage people to submit abstracts. Abstracts can be submitted in English, French, or Spanish. And we hope that by June, we would notify people whether their abstract has been admitted. And the exhibition stand, similarly, you can already register participant-driven events also. So do go into the website and start submitting your interest. Early bird registration is open until the 15th of May, and there will be discounted rates for delegates from low and middle income countries. And that includes access to pretty much everything. Liz is posting the links, and I think really just that this we as I said, we are very, very much hoping that the pandemic will allow us to have a fully in-person event, and if we can't, then we'll have to do a hybrid as others are doing. Next, please. I think this is the last one. No. Yeah, how can you support the forum? Of course, we're always looking for additional funding, and specifically for the bursaries that we use for bringing LMIC and young researchers. We also need translation services, supporting the self-care and well-being activities, and core costs. So if if you know anyone who is potentially interested in funding, again, please put them in contact with Liz or Lizzo. Next, please. I think this is the last one. Yes. So, really just thank you for listening, and I hope that that you join us and encourage your friends and colleagues to join as well. Thank you.
Gracias, Claudia. Gracias. The forum is indeed a safe place where diverse and multiple voices come together to innovate, share, and create partnership, committed to research that will make a difference to the lives of women and children. We're so excited to be in person in Cancun soon. But now to kind of showcase this in practice, we have brought together a panel of wonderful people committed to gender equity and addressing violence against women and children who have firsthand experience of the forum. So today with us, we have Gary Barker, CEO and founder of Promundo, Dr. Jocelyn Kelly, Director of Harvard Humanitarian Initiative's Gender Rights and Resilience Program, and Tesmer Atbesh, sorry, Tesmer, I always butcher your name, and I have introduced you before, Atzbeha, Senior Program Officer on the Women's Rights Team at Wellspring Philanthropic Fund. So thank you all for being here today. After the panel, we'll have a question and answer session, so please don't leave. You can start writing your questions into the chat. And let's start this wonderful panel. Gary, let me start with you. You have attended every single SVRI forum and been involved in so many ways, running workshops, speaking on panels, presenting research, hosting events, asking interesting and challenging questions. Why is the SVRI Forum so important to you and your organization?
Thanks, Deanna, and I'm honored to be part of the conversation and to help kick off the next one. I think over the years, to the 10 plus years that SVRI has existed as an organization and the forum itself, it's gone from a hub of research and an exchange to really being part of a political voice of saying we have to act on this research. And I've been, pleased to see how the growth in a relatively small group of individuals looking at sexual violence within the gender-based violence field has grown into a network that now includes practitioners and policymakers and, of course, researchers and activists and survivors and youth lending their voice to the cause. And so, I think the very impressive numbers that Claudia presented, and also Claudia deserves, as well as Liz and Liesl, for all the work over these years for making it into what it is. It is not just those impressive numbers, it really is a call to action. And I think the arc that I've seen over these years has been that. This research compels us to say, we've gone from the world needs to pay attention to this, which still needs to be done, but I think increasingly to what must be done and how do we keep that pressure up. And so I've been thrilled that Promundo has been able to co-coordinate one of the previous events, and I share Claudia's and Deanna yours as well, desire to see it in Latin America again, and excited for that reason. As Claudia noted, there's so much work to build on in the region that often doesn't get seen outside of it, so I think that is fantastic. And just finally, I want to note that there's a piece of the work that I think we often can forget about, which is it is easy for policymakers, journalists, the world, individuals to turn away from what are some of the most challenging kinds of violence to talk about. And I have very much appreciated the attention and the care for those of us who work on the topic to acknowledge how difficult it is to have careers and spend time looking at these forms of violence, to be sensitive about how we center survivor voices at all moments, to make it safe to tell individual stories of surviving violence, but not letting us turn away from it, making sure that at the end of it, we are moved to action. So I'm thrilled to see it in Mexico, and certainly under Nadine's partnership, this will be exciting. And let me stop there. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So many great points that you've made about the importance this has as a platform for advocacy and continued action around all the forms of violence that women and children experience. So thank you so much for reminding us about that, Gary. Now let me turn to Jocelyn. Jocelyn, you were the first person to win the Young Researcher Award in 2009. How has this impacted you and your career?
Yes, thank you so much, Diana. I am indeed a dinosaur at SVRI. I've been around since the very beginning, and I just want to say that it is such an honor and delight to be here. The people organizing this panel are truly kind of change makers who are living their values and supporting this remarkable global movement. I think what I want to say is that doing work on sexual violence, gender-based violence, violence against women is such a lonely pursuit. And I know that so many of you are kind of the lone voices for justice, for gender analysis in your organizations. And I know how incredibly tiring this can be. So I want you to know that SVRI is a chance for you to meet other tireless advocates across the world and kind of get re-energized as a community. I always say SVRI is my Christmas. It only comes once every 2 years, sometimes once every 3 years. But especially when I was starting out in my field, I walked into SVRI, the very first conference, and all of a sudden I felt like for the first time, I was among a community of people who understood me and saw me and were thinking about the same difficult issues and wanted to have these kinds of conversations. You know, SVRI is about community building, it's about self-care, it's about collaboration, it's about new projects. And since, you know, the very beginning, I've also gotten a chance to work across other fields that are related. And I will say, you know, honestly, not to cast any kind of aspersions on other efforts, that I think the GBV field is one of the most cohesive and inclusive as a global movement. And I think SVRI played an enormous significant role in creating that. You know, it's innovative, it's evidence-based, and above all, it kind of has this inclusive feel, which I think is really special. So if you come, your synapses are going to be buzzing. I have a couple of words of advice. Bring a notebook and pen to every session. Talk to as many new people as you can and feed your curiosity. You know, go to any panels that seem exciting to you personally, not just what you have to do for work. And I'll just close by saying that at every single SVRI, I've kind of walked through the buffet line or at the coffee shop, and I've heard snippets of fascinating conversation. And each time I've overheard those snippets of fascinating conversation, I have seen those very ideas actually turn into these really fun, interesting collaborations or global movements, or I get emails about projects that have been created as a result of those kind of like initial sparking moments that people have as SVRI. So it's a moment to nurture your mind, your social connections, your imagination, and I really hope you get to attend.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, and for kind of emphasizing that it's where we build and our community in the forum. So it's really, as you mentioned, sometimes a lonely endeavor to work on violence against women and girls and children. And this is where we get together with our community to also self-care and build networks and also learn and innovate. So many things happen at the forum. And thank you for telling us about your experience and your recommendations and the conversations you were overhearing. Tasmer, let me turn now to you. You come to the forum as a funder. How does the forum help you with your mission of supporting violence against women and girls and violence against children prevention?
Thanks, Deanna, and thanks to Gary and Jocelyn and Claudia for providing so much wonderful insight and speaking so lovingly about this conference that also Wellspring loves so much. I would say if Liz asked me to do interpretive dance to get you to come to this conference, I would. We've been supporting the conference for many years now, and we're so excited to be here, and we really missed the opportunity to be together last year. As a funder, I think, you know, very practically and selfishly, the conference is great because I get to see all my grantees in person in one place, which makes my job and my life so much easier. So I've been missing that. But beyond that, and mirroring what Gary and Jocelyn were saying, it is so much more than an academic conference. And I think it's really been beautiful to see that journey and that trajectory. Kind of, we all, myself included, come from, public health or other sectors where you have this model of what an academic conference is supposed to be. And I think we've now transformed the space to be so much more around learning and dialogue and building community. And it's something that, working in spaces where you're supporting partners who are part of social movements, this role of knowledge production in a social movement is really a critical role. And having that space for that knowledge that's being produced by folks in the community to be shared and to be discussed and, argued over, and for different perspectives to be brought together is really a sacred space. And that's really where the thought leadership for strategy for social change happens. So I think, it's really much more than just sharing evidence. It's much deeper than that. And there's a lot of trust building for partnerships and for collaborations that have then gone on to be these really amazing initiatives. And oftentimes what you'll see, like Prevention Collaborative and other sort of, initiatives have debuted and come out at the conference. And I think that's just a testament to the role that this convening space plays. The other thing as others have said, is that we're going so much beyond the evidence generation now. And I think that is so helpful to be able to see and be part of these conversations and bring policymakers to this space now, and bring program implementers to this space and other funders to this space to really understand the whole cycle that needs to happen, and that there needs to be so much connection with that cycle. And I think just to underscore what Claudia presented around the increased but continued value that SVRI has always put on equity and inclusion and decolonizing research, not just accepting the structures as they are, but seeing that the structures can be made more contextualized for the communities, and actually more, more able to reach, that the evidence is more able to reach the folks who actually need it in the forms that can be understood and can be accepted. And I think that that's a really important part of this work. And finally, there's this really exciting moment that's happening right now with SVRI just completing the first shared research agenda that was done collectively and just, by the membership and by the entire field or the entire community having inputs in what are the important questions that we have for our next generation of evidence building and learning that we are doing together. And I think this is such an exciting moment to be together, to delve into that, and to to also to be in person, to have those kind of conversations around, there's still some level of prioritization that's going to happen. And I think that this is it adds this additional sort of layer or additional element of community sort of I guess this sort of community like Gary was saying, community call to action, but also community priorities and community values, really based in what we're learning and what we want to have support, particularly from governments and funders in terms of what will be the next learning going forward for the field. So all that to say, it's such a wonderful space, as others have said. As much as possible, I encourage all of my partners to come, and if there are resource constraints to coming, there are many different sources, as Liz has put in the chat, of spaces where there's possibilities for support to attend. So please make it a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tesmer. And I really want to echo your point on policymakers attending the forum, because as the World Bank, we have had the opportunity to bring some of our policymakers that we're working with on projects to the forum. And to see them excited to talk to the researchers, to be like, oh, you recommended, integrating gender dialogue to coffee ceremonies. That's the person who evaluated that. I can speak to that person. Okay, I want to invest in that. I mean, it really, they were so engaged, the policymakers. They would stay after the panels and like ask all the researchers questions. So I think policymakers really get inspired when they attend the forum, and that hopefully leads to increased investment. So I think that's a great point. I think I have, because those were kind of easy questions. I have one hard question for all of you. And I might start from the bottom up. So Tesmer, this is for you first. The hard question is, and maybe not so hard, whether you think we're making progress on gender equity and achieving a violence-free world, and whether you're optimistic about the work that we've done.
Oh, this is a tough question. I think when we were doing the prep and I was thinking about this, like, okay, I don't want to say I'm optimistic if I'm, on the day not feeling optimistic, but I actually had a call with a grantee who was in Guanajuato yesterday and who works on femicide and, people who have been disappeared and gender-based violence, as well as reproductive justice. And just speaking with her and hearing how they are strategizing in the work that they're doing, I was like, how can I not be optimistic if she's optimistic? And I think it really was a reminder to me of like, okay, there's, with as much as there has been a backlash, and I think we just recognize in the normative space, in the kind of global normative spaces, there has been a backlash to some of the advancement that we've had around gender equality. There has also been incredible innovation, and I think that we owe a lot to social movements, and particularly to young activists for being at the forefront of that. And just, we are seeing social change happening so rapidly in so many different spaces. And I think that there's so many new threads. And speaking with being based and not able to travel outside of the US in the last couple of years, just getting to be part of conversations with more local advocates who are looking at the intersections of, racial violence and gendered violence, and thinking about that differently, and thinking about strategies, non-carceral solution strategies at the community level, and talking to folks who are organizing with survivors and survivor-led agendas and work that's really prioritizing collective care and healing justice. It's just so exciting. So there's no way for me not to be optimistic while also feeling the heaviness of the moment, and how much we really have in many ways, like, are in a difficult situation, and not to in any way minimize that.
Thank you. Thanks. That's a great example of speaking to someone in Guanajuato and seeing it from their perspective, and how that can re-energize you. And I think the forum is great for absorbing kind of new energy, as Jocelyn said, to continue on with our research and our work to end violence. So Jocelyn, what do you feel? Are we making progress on gender equity and achieving a violence-free world?
Yes, I actually do think we are making progress, and I think we've come so incredibly far. I know so many of us can remember a time when there were no UN resolutions on addressing violence against women in conflict, when there was no emphasis on better understanding what works to prevent violence against women and girls. I think the evidence base has grown leaps and bounds, and I also think that the violence against women field has been a model for other fields trying to figure out how to bring together the interface of evidence-based programming and policy to continue to move things forward. So I'm optimistic, but I think you have to be both optimistic and tireless because we're not there, right? And as we begin to tackle hurdles that we've faced in the past, we haven't, eradicated or solved those problems, but we're also facing a future where we have really complex, unexpected new dynamics that are coming at us incredibly quickly. So, all of us are aware of how difficult the COVID-19 pandemic has been on women. And I think all of us are incredibly concerned about the kind of generational impacts that this will have. Women are set back, economically, they're set back in their careers, they're set back in the amount of caregiving that they have to do. And of course, the violence that they face within and outside of the home. I published a report with some wonderful co-authors at USIP talking about COVID-19 and violence against women as a syndemic. These are these two twin phenomena that can feed on each other if you don't disrupt that cycle. I would also note that gender-based violence and climate change should be, top of our priority list of things to understand and look at, things that are new and coming at us. And we have to take the lessons we've learned from the past and apply it to this kind of future forward, activism that we have to do. I think we've all seen that women have frankly been absent or marginalized from some of the most important global conversations that we're having about COVID, about climate change, and about other key dynamics, and that's unacceptable. So I would say keep that optimism, keep networking, and get rest because we still have more to do.
Yeah, a lot more to do. But thanks for that. Maybe you can drop a link to that paper. I think a lot of people will enjoy reading it. It's a great paper. I have looked at it, not read it thoroughly, but looked at it. I should go back and read it. Gary, let me give you the final word. Are you optimistic? Do you think we're making progress on gender equity and achieving a violence-free world?
Yes, let's not make it the final word. I think there's lots more words coming. But a word, I do feel partially optimistic, and I agree with Tesmer of, it does depend on the day and perhaps what we've, seen happening in terms of action. But if I think of it that it's messy and slow and it's long term, then yes, I think we're winning. And on particularly optimistic days, I think even the backlash is partly a signal that we're winning. If I think about the pushback in Latin America on the kind of anti-gender ideology voices, partly it's because the voices of rights-based approaches and activism for full reproductive, sexual, and human rights and women's rights are having an impact. And that's why so many folks are worried and invest so much energy in pushing back against us. So there's a huge amount to do there to see that we continue to win, if we want to put it in that language. But I am optimistic. And I guess, if I think about it in terms of bringing men into this conversation and what we need to do to engage men to question power and privilege, and to engage men to call out other men's use of abuse and violence. I was at a factory with a company that we do some partnering with about engaging their workforce in ending harassment in the workplace and seeing what men can do to be allies outside that as well. And in the same meeting, there can be one man who's worried about, well, I get called out for something he didn't do. And that gives me a point to check in and say, well, why are you worried? What are you doing? And another man saying, what can I do to end this? What can I do to be a voice for change? And we're very conscious as well from research we've done there and elsewhere that many men say, yes, I'm ready to act. And yes, I would know how to respond. And we'll do interviews with women in the same setting who say, not so much. But I do find optimism in the fact that men telling us they think they should do something means that we can hold them accountable in meaningful and direct ways. So yes, partly optimistic, but really aware of the challenges and how to connect up the good intentions with meaningful change.
Great, thanks so much, Gary. And thank you for reminding us that this is something that we have to work with women and men and children of all ages to kind of address and challenge those really deeply ingrained gender norms that lead to the acceptability and use of violence in our communities. So thanks for reminding us of that. Let's turn it now to our question and answer session. We have 10 minutes. And Claudia, I have a first question for you. We have someone that's asked if an an individual or an organization shares their project related to women and children during the forum and asks for support, what type of support can SVRI give that organization or that individual?
Sorry, I'm in the path of airplanes and I cannot control when they go over. I mean, I think it will depend on the type of research and what kind of support is being sought. But there's the things that spring to mind. One is that if, for example, the type of support needed is some technical advice on research design or that kind of thing, we can help to bring the person seeking the advice together with colleagues that might be able to provide that support. You know, as Jocelyn was saying, you know, a lot of collaborations and partnerships have sprung out of SVRI Forum. There are donors that are interested in this issue, you know, like TESMA, but also some of the bilateral funders and others, and research funders. We hope to increase the number of donors interested in this field that are there available. So it's always possible to set up a bilateral with one of the funders to share the things. So I think there's the main issues around connecting with the type of support, the people that can provide you the type of support that you're looking for, be it financial or technical or emotional, you know, whatever it is. I think another thing that Jocelyn mentioned is that sometimes this can be a very lonely field. And sometimes when you're, you know, embedded in that, you don't realize the toll that it's also sometimes takes on you to be, you know, listening to difficult stories. Or so I think that there's a lot of ways in which the forum provides sort of also that support.
Great. And just to follow up to that, and this is for anyone that wants to jump in, how does the forum facilitate that networking and connection among our community? What type of events for those who haven't attended?
So I was going to ask Liz and Lizzle whether they also want to add. So maybe I'll hand that over to them.
Thanks, Claudia, and thanks, Diana, for a really great question. We, as all the panelists have so eloquently spoken about, that we work so hard to ensure that it is a diverse and inclusive space. So we provide opportunities for networking. Last forum, there was a speed networking, kind of a speed dating idea where people could get together and talk to each other. And at the ring of a bell, you went to somebody else. It was kind of really good fun. There's also opportunities for new and emerging researchers and new and emerging practitioners and new and emerging folk in the field to talk to the more experienced folk, to talk about and hear about how they have developed their work in this arena, in this field, and that's also really well attended. We'd like to also create spaces where researchers and practitioners can come together to talk about their work, why both stories are both important to developing our knowledge and the knowledge ecosystem. And we really do encourage folk that are working on programs and practice in the field to submit abstracts on their work and what they're learning, because we do have a sort of program practice-based abstract submission process. And so do come and present your work or submit an abstract, it's peer reviewed. And if you have the opportunity, do come and present your work. We do try and prepare new folk who haven't been at the conference before through providing them with some understanding of how the forum works, giving them some opportunities to link up to people and to try and make sure if you're new and you haven't been before that it is a space in which you can ask questions, raise up ideas and have your voice heard. So really do come and talk to any one of us at the SVRI staff. We will help you. And any of Destinos' staff, I see Guillermo is on the line as well. And we're going to have a wonderful group of people providing support and care at the conference. And do use those networking opportunities. They are there for you. We also have great dinners where everybody dances, has fun, shares, maybe drum a bit. We haven't worked out what we should be doing in Mexico, and we're looking forward to all our partners telling us what would be a great opportunity to enjoy the vibrancy of being in Latin America and the Caribbean. Thanks, Diana, for a great question.
Great. I hope we have some mariachis.
I'm
Colombian
sure we
people
will.
actually love mariachis. So
I was
appreciate
thinking
it.
the same. I was thinking, you read my mind.
Great.
Yay.
Mariachis, Lizzle and Lizzle. I will we'll help you guys get them.
Thank you.
So there's a question, and I think it relates to what you were just talking, but someone from South Sudan is joining us, and she needs support for an emerging women's movement. And I don't know, I think we've talked about researchers, policymakers, and Tesmer said, you know, bringing the movements into the same community as those who are doing research and practice-based work on this. How can we help strengthen movements through the forum and just identify those women who need support in strengthening their movements? Liz, I don't want to put you on the spot again. I know it's
I mean, thanks, Diana, and thanks for the question. It's so important to ensure that women's movements and their voices are involved in the process of the forum and the discussions there, because once you are there, as Claudia highlighted, there are so many folk out there that you can connect with, meet up with, and discuss your needs, and other organizations that are going through similar experiences. And Tesma spoke about the opportunities and possibilities for funding that may be available out there. We are working super hard to fundraise as much as possible for bursaries, which we will share through the SVRI update. So if you're not part of the SVRI update, please just send us an email. We'll put you on. And that will be linked to abstract submissions. So your work, do submit an abstract, and or we can start trying to work out how to mobilize funds around that too. But do come. Once you're there, there's so many resources there. We want as many people from low middle income countries doing this work to be there, engaging in the discussions and participating. So we look forward to having you there. Thanks, Diana.
Thanks, Liz. And I just to say that SVRI Forum is a moment where we come together as the community, but I think so many of us look to SVRI for the summary of evidence, for financing opportunities, for connecting throughout the year, even when we're not in person, to researchers working in the areas that we're interested in. So for that person who's joining us from South Sudan, first of all, thank you for your work. And start exploring all the resources on the SVRI website. They have podcasts now. Their newsletter is wonderful. You know, it's one of the things that I really make time to read when I receive them. And so there's resources that you can start looking at now. And we welcome you to the forum. We really hope that you can join us in Mexico. It would be great. And just to say that we're getting a lot of requests, tacos, tequila, we're very Viva Mexico in the chat. So people are very excited. Mariachis is like non-negotiable now. So we're super excited. And with that, I would just like to thank all of the panelists. I would like to thank the SVRI Forum, its co-host, the team from the Regional Center for Multidisciplinary Research, Autonomous University of Mexico, and the National Women's Institute of Mexico for their generous support to the important global event that we're all really looking forward to. I would also like to thank today's speakers for their wonderful, rich and I would say honest discussion about the forum, about their experiences, and about what they feel in this moment, being researchers and funders on violence against women and girls and violence against children work. And I would like to thank all the people who joined the webinar and engaged with us today. We had some old friends, new friends with us. We hope to see you all in Cancun for the forum. I hope to see you there. We all hope to see you there, and we welcome you to be with us this September from the 19th to the 23rd in Cancun. And really looking forward to sharing some tacos, some tequila, and some mariachis with you all. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.